I want to talk about something today that, when I first really understood it, generally changed the way I think about aging. Not in a scary way, in a finally this makes sense sort of way. Because so many women that I work with come to me saying the same things. The skin is changing faster than it should. The joints feel different. The fatigue is even is so real, even when sleep is okay. The blood sugar feels impossible to manage, even when they're eating well, and they want to know why. And there are hormonal answers to all of these questions. But there's another layer that sits underneath the hormone conversation, a biological process that perimenopause actively accelerates. And almost nobody's talking about it. It's called glycation. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what it is, why perimenopause makes you more vulnerable to it, what it's doing inside your body, and most importantly, what you can do about it starting today. Let's get into it. So glycation, what actually is it? Here's the simplest way I can put it. Your body runs on glucose, blood sugar, and under normal circumstances, glucose fuels your cells, gets stored, gets used. That's the system working as designed. But when blood sugar is elevated, chronically elevated, not just a spike after a meal, but consistently high, something else starts happening. Glucose molecules start sticking to proteins and fats throughout the body, and they sort of bind to them. And when they do that, they form these compounds called Advanced Glycation End Products, AGEs. I want you to picture your proteins like elastic bands, fresh, pliable, doing their job. Glycation is like gradually coating these elastic bands in sticky, sugary glue. And over time, they lose their elasticity. They become stiff, they can become brittle, and they start sticking to each other in ways they shouldn't. And that's what is happening at a cellular level. And the really important thing to understand is this: once AGEs form, they cannot be easily reversed. Your body can break some of them down, but largely this is sort of a one-way street. They accumulate. Think of it like rust. You don't just rust overnight, but years of exposure to the wrong environment, and the damage builds up in ways that are hard to undo. Now, AGEs come from two places, and this is something most people have no idea about. First, they form internally inside your body as a consequence of blood sugar being elevated. The higher and longer your blood sugar runs, the more glycation occurs. And secondly, this one surprises people, AGEs also form in food during cooking, specifically during high heat, dry cooking methods, grilling, frying, roasting at high temperatures. So when proteins and sugars in food are exposed to that kind of heat, a chemical reaction called the Maillard reaction occurs. That's essentially the browning that you see on the outside of grilled meat or on the crust of bread. It's also a major source of dietary AGEs. And around 10 to 30% of the AGEs you eat are absorbed into your body. So you're both producing AGEs internally and potentially consuming them with every meal, depending on how you're cooking. Now, let's talk about why this matters so specifically for women in perimenopause and menopause, because this is where I want you to really pay attention. As estrogen declines, and in perimenopause, it doesn't just decline, it fluctuates wildly before it eventually bottoms out. One of the things that happens is your insulin sensitivity decreases. Your cells become less responsive to insulin signal to take up glucose. And what that means in practical terms is that after you eat, blood sugar stays elevated for longer than it is used to. And the curve is higher and flatter. So glucose is in your bloodstream circulating for more time than it was when you were in your 30s. And longer exposure to elevated blood sugar means more glycation, more AGEs forming. The biological environment of perimenopause is actively accelerating this process. And I want to be really clear here, because I know this is the kind of information can land well. This is not your fault. This is not you failing at health. This is a hormonal shift that changes the game. And if nobody's explained the rules, sort of the new rules of the game to you, of course it's going to feel like you're losing. But understanding this is what changes it, because once you understand what's happening, you can make choices that actively counter it. So you're not powerless here. There's one more piece to this: fructose. This is the sugar found in fruit juice, honey, and most notably high fructose. This glycates proteins approximately 10 times faster than glucose. 10 times. Which means if you're consuming significant amounts of fructose on top of an already compromised insulin sensitivity environment, then the rate at which you're forming AGEs is significantly accelerated. And this is why I care so much about blood sugar stability in the work that we do inside the MYM club. If Viola and myself don't talk about, oh, just go low carb. It's not a low carb ideology. It's just about understanding what, in that hormonal environment, how we manage blood sugar has downstream consequences that go far beyond energy levels. Let's talk about what ages are actually doing inside the body, because when I walk through this with clients, it's usually the moment where the dots start connecting. We have collagen and elastin, and these are the structural proteins that give your skin its firmness, its bounce, its ability to snap back. They also give your joints their cushioning and their flexibility. So when ages cross-link collagen fibers, those fibers lose their elasticity and become stiff. And the skin changes, joints feel different. You might notice increased puffiness, less firmness, a texture that feels different than it used to. And this is not just aging. This is accelerated aging driven by a process that can be slowed down with insulin receptors. Here is where it gets particularly frustrating. And I want you to understand this cycle. When insulin receptors become glycated, they become less responsive to insulin, which means blood sugar stays elevated for longer after you eat, which means more glycation occurs, which further damages insulin receptors, which means blood sugar stays up even longer. So it's like a loop. And it's one of the reasons why, as sort of perimenopause progresses, blood sugar management can feel increasingly difficult, even when you haven't sort of fundamentally changed what you're eating. And then we have mitochondria. Your mitochondria is, we talk about this all the time, it's a cellular production, energy production unit. When mitochondrial proteins become glycated, their ability to produce energy efficiently declines. This is a biological contributor to the fatigue that so many women in perimenopause experience. Not tiredness just because you're unfit, because that's not true. Not tiredness because you're not trying hard enough. It's cellular level fatigue because the machinery that produces your energy is being damaged. And we have vascular walls. Ages cause arteries to stiffen, and when arteries stiffen, blood pressure rises. Cardiovascular risk increases, and this is one of the reasons why cardiovascular disease risk goes up significantly post-menopause, because that estrogen withdrawal is part of the story, but age accumulation in vascular tissue is another chapter in the same book. And then we have brain tissue. So research is increasingly looking at ages in relation to neuroinflammation and cognitive decline. And that brain fog, the word finding difficulties, the memory changes that women report in menopause, there are hormonal explanations. But glycation of brain tissue is part of a broader inflammatory picture that may be contributing. What I want you to sit with is this: skin changes, fatigue, joint stiffness, blood sugar dysregulation, brain fog, cardiovascular risk. These are not separate, unrelated things that just happen to you as you get older. They're connected. And glycation sits at the intersection of many of them. Okay, enough about the why. Let's talk about what you can actually do with this information. And I want to give you things that are genuinely actionable, not a list of everything you need to eliminate from your life. Stop high fructose corn syrup. I'm not going to tell you never to have a piece of fruit. That's not what this is about. But high fructose corn syrup is a different category entirely. It is in processed foods, sauces, condiments, some breakfast cereals, some flavored yogurts, so-called healthy snack bars. It is ubiquitous. And given that fructose glycates 10 times faster than glucose, reducing your exposure to it is one of the highest leverage moves you can make. Start reading ingredient labels, not nutrition labels, ingredient lists. If you see high fructose corn syrup, glucose fructose syrup, or corn syrup solids, put it back. Number 2, dry high heat cooking as your default. I'm not saying never grill anything, but if every dinner is grilled, fried, roasted at high temperature, you are adding significant dietary age load on top of whatever your body is already producing internally. Variety matters here. Number 3 is eating carbohydrates without protein. I always like to say eating carbohydrates without friends. When you eat carbohydrates on their own, toast on its own, fruit on its own, rice on its own, blood sugar spikes faster and harder. That spike is the exact environment where glycation accelerates. So pairing every carbohydrate source with protein slows gastric emptying, blunts the glucose response, and reduces the time blood sugar spends elevated and circulating the system. This one is not really a complicated intervention. It's more of a pairing habit. So be conscious around the foods that you're consuming. Start doing this. Acid marinades. This one is, I suppose, generally surprises people because marinating meat, fish, or even vegetables in an acidic ingredient, lemon juice, lime juice, apple cider vinegar, wine before high heat cooking significantly reduces the ages that form during the cooking process. The acid interferes with the Maillard reaction. Same food, same cooking method, substantially lower age content. That's a practical, accessible swap that costs nothing. Number two, moist cooking methods. Poaching, steaming, slow cooking, stewing, braising, these cooking methods generate far fewer dietary ages than dry heat methods. The water or liquid in the cooking environment prevents the Maillard reaction from occurring at the same rate. So a chicken breast poached in stock has dramatically lower age content than the same chicken breast grilled. Make slow cooker meals, poach eggs, steam vegetables. They're not boring choices, they're smart choices. Number three, protein first. Every meal, not a mountain of protein, not obsessive tracking, just a habit of making sure protein is on the plate and going in first or alongside carbohydrates. This single habit does far more for blood sugar management than almost anything I can recommend. And better blood sugar management means less internal age formation, and therefore it compounds. Number four, move after meals. Even a 10-minute walk after eating significantly improves that glucose clearance. Your muscles become a glucose sink, essentially. They absorb circulating glucose without needing insulin to do it. Less glucose in the bloodstream for less time, less glycation. This is one of the most evidence-backed, accessible interventions in the space. You don't need a gym, although we love it, it's beneficial. You just need 10 minutes and your front door. Get out there, get moving. Number five, polyphenol-rich foods. Berries, green tea, fresh herbs, dark leafy greens, extra virgin olive oil. Polyphenols have both anti-glycation and anti-inflammatory effects. They don't undo ages that have already formed, but they help slow the rate at which new ones form and reduce the inflammatory signaling that ages trigger through what are called rage receptors. This is generally one of the areas where eating more is the answer, not eating less. I want to finish with something that I think matters more than any of the practical steps I've just shared. A lot of women come to perimenopause, postmenopause, feeling like their body has turned against them, like the rules have changed and nobody sent the memo. And in a real sense, they're right. The rules have changed hormonally, metabolically, cerebrally, cellularly. The body you're navigating now works different than the body you had in your 30s. But that doesn't mean you're losing. It means you need better information, a better strategy. Glycation is one of those mechanisms that once you understand it, it shifts from being an invisible threat to something you can actively have strategies for. You can change how you cook. You can pair your meals differently. You can walk after dinner. You can read an ingredient list. These are not like huge life overhauling changes. They are small, compounding adjustments that add up to a fundamentally different biological environment inside your body. And you deserve to know this. You deserve to understand what's actually happening to you. And you deserve to know this. You deserve to understand what's actually happening so you can make informed choices rather than just hoping something works. If this video was useful, subscribe, because we go deep on this stuff quite regularly. Share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. And if you want to go further, if you want real structured support navigating perimenopause and menopause through metabolic health, movement, mindset, and more, come and find us at the MYM Club. Link is below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.